Hello, and welcome to another episode of Processing with Sam and Malik, a weekly take on life through the lens of husbands, fathers, believers, and most importantly, Philly sports fans. As always, this episode is brought to you by Sam's Community TV, creating content to establish a community through relationship building. And folks, as we get started here, I'm going to drop the link in the comments section for anyone who wants to join us. Feel free to just hop on this link that's in the comments section. The only thing we ask is that you cam up or at least provide your name so that we can verify who you are, especially in the age of AI. So, say it again. How are we doing today, Malik?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Fascinating week. I can't wait to get into today's topics because if you remembered last Tuesday, I actually got a chance to catch the game live.
That's right.
Saw the Sixers in Boston, and I have a whole lot to share about that experience. I think I'll put that in my what am I processing moment. So,
okay.
Without further ado, let's kind of kick things off, man. I think it's appropriate that we start the show with the news of the recent retirement of the Eagles legend, one Jason Kelce.
Yeah.
So I think I want to start the show, I guess maybe ask the question two ways. One, it's if you had opportunity to watch the press conference, did you have any thoughts? Two, let's talk about the 13-year career of the All-Pro, future Hall of Famer.
My first thought is, what would your wife think of you if you cried that much? like for real. Like, I'm no shade, because I'm a crier. I'm loud, I'm aggressive, whatever it is, but I'm definitely, every now and again I get allergies. But I don't know if I've ever cried for 45 minutes straight. Like, I don't know of any instance. Like, I've been at funerals, tragic things. But 45 minutes, I just want to know how your wife will react. That's all, before we get into it, for real.
I think that's a fair question, man.
And I have been drinking, so I apologize in advance if something I said.
It was interesting. Like, I've never seen a press conference like that before.
No.
I've never seen someone take those kinds of breaks to cry.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it was so unique in so many ways. And at the same time, I felt like it was so authentic. Like, I didn't feel like there was anything for show. I think that if Jason could have held it together, he would have preferred to be able to do that. And at the same time, the pauses were necessary. I don't think he would have been able to just push through it. Like, we wouldn't be able to hear what he was trying to say because I think he was just so emotional and choked up the whole time. And I just thought it was just it was fascinating because you don't see those emotions when it comes to retirees anymore. You don't see guys who only played for one franchise for 13 years. It's like the last of a dying breed. And so in watching it today, I realized that this is not going to be something that you see regularly. When guys retire, they're going to have a number of jerseys that they have. And, like the Jason Kelce type, I just think is like, it's almost a throwback to the Kobe, one franchise, one organization. And I know that he has valued his time here. He's all about the Philadelphia scene, the team, one of the best ambassadors I think the team has ever had.
Yeah.
And as much as it is a little bit bittersweet, I think this was a time that felt right.
I will tell you, I watched the entirety of it, and I may have, joked about, crying or have you, but it was only because I related to so much of what he said. I think, if you're from it, the part that hit me, he said a number of amazing things. He talked about his teammates, his family, his experiences going from lacrosse to, ending up as a center, going from linebacker to center, all of that. But I think the part that made me so proud, and I ain't gonna lie, a little misty, was the fact that he nailed Philadelphia. I pulled up a transcript of his speech, and there was a part of it that I really thought hit.
I'm sorry. Are you all right? I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty. My apologies, folks.
All good.
Sorry about this. I am unable to hear my partner here. So just give us one quick moment as we figure out what just happened there. All right, testing.
You got me back?
Okay.
Are we here?
That's one more time.
Because question.
Testing.
I got you.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. So we are back. We are ready to go. So Malik, again, I'm sorry.
No, all good. I was just saying that the part that really hit me, the fact that he played at such a high level and was a Philadelphia Eagle the entire time is certainly a badge of honor. But I think the part that endears so many players and athletes to the city is the idea that they become and they represent for us. They represent for us as family who have loved the Eagles in down years. They love us. They're for kids who want to be players and aren't as talented or as gifted or don't have the means to be players. When you put on that logo or that name on the front of your jersey, you are us. And really, I think the part about being a Philadelphian is that you take the whole city on your back when you go on and play, good or bad. And the idea that we get on you when you are not playing well, when you don't show passion, but we've got your back the way that no other place would. And that's the part that made me so proud. And I'm going to probably miss the most because I can't remember a guy who was both as talented as he was. I think unquestionably, probably with little question, he'll be a Hall of Famer, but was as revered and great a leader by the city. So we've had guys who have been incredibly talented, but we haven't had guys who've been the type of leader that he's been.
You know what's really interesting? The only player that I think about that had that kind of impact, Reggie White.
Well, let me just throw one thing because I was gonna say the part that makes him unique from a Reggie White or from a Dawkins or whatever it is that he stayed here the entire time.
Yeah.
That's the part.
Yeah.
Like he is uniquely ours. There's not going to be any question. Like Chase Utley, if he ever makes it to the Hall of Fame, he'll be a Philly, but he also been a Dodger, right? Jimmy Rollins, he played in other clubs. He's always going to be a Philly, but he played for other teams, right? And so you've got Allen Iverson. We love Allen Iverson, but he still had some good years in Denver, right? And so I can't think of another guy the way that he played at a high level and was an all-pro, if not this year, recently. I don't remember the last time he was given that honor, earned that honor, but played at that level, was a Philadelphian through and through, and was revered and loved by his teammates and put on for the city the way that he did.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of another guy. So I was proud of him for that part. I was proud of him for acknowledging the city. I was proud of him for the fact that he talked about the passion, what it takes to play in the city, what he talked about how these people become demigods, not because we honor them in the way like their gifts and talents, but because we want them to put on and love us and show that love and the passion and performance on the field the way that we feel about the city.
Right.
So I was immensely touched by that. And I was so proud, and he's going to be missed greatly. And Cam Jurgens, next up, good luck, bro.
I mean, maybe Cam is okay. I will say the one thing that Jason did talk about in terms of the relationship between the city and the players, he talked about the scenario with Zach Ertz.
Yep.
There was a game where Zach Ertz allegedly, I don't recall it off the top, but I guess he turtled up against Montez Burfict and didn't want to, throw his body in there the way he was supposed to. And the fans saw it. And they gave him a hard time about it because they realized, hey, man, you're not giving it your all. That was a play for you to make, and you shied away from it in that moment. And we saw that, and we're going to let you know how we feel about that play. And he said the very next week he caught a pass. And this part I actually kind of think my mind does remember where he caught a pass and just like had the super truck stick on and was just trying to bowl through. It took like 3 or 4 guys to bring him down, and the link erupted, right? And what Jason was saying was that as down as they were on Zach Ertz the week before, because he responded, because he took it to heart, because he showed the city what he's really made of, he's like Zach Ertz is, again, a Philly legend at this point. Like, people don't have a negative thing to say about Zach Ertz, even though he was not a perfect player, right? But it's like in Philadelphia, you don't have to be a perfect player. You just have to give it your all. And if you do that, we're good. You know what I'm saying? And so I also appreciate the fact that Jason let it be known that, hey, the city can be hard, but here is why. And I think that was important to articulate the nuance there, because we get such a negative rap about being just like a pessimistic city glass half empty all the time, when it's really not that. It's just, I think it's just more of a level of passion. I think that we are so invested in the game that we believe we have a level of understanding that allows us to see through the nonsense, right? And so we know what true north is. And so when you're showing us something that's not true north, we're just the fan base that's going to call you on it. But when you do show us true north, you'll never buy a drink in this town,
Right.
And so I think both things are true when it comes to Philadelphia sports fans. Obviously, Jason Kelce is one of one because of that point. 13-year career. I didn't even think about, and it's unfortunate because like B Dog should have never had on a Denver jersey. Everyone knows that.
He shouldn't. I will tell you though, it hurts me a little bit because didn't he win a Super Bowl with Denver?
He did.
He did. And so like listen, Brian Dawkins is revered and he should be in the city. There's no question about it, right? My kids who weren't even alive when Brian Dawkins was playing know who Brian Dawkins is, right? But the idea that he matters in the same way to Denver fans and residents, the way that he may matter here, like Kelce is special for that reason.
Yeah.
He's special because he got it. He's special because, and I don't know, he mentioned, I don't remember if it was his agent. I think it was his agent he highlighted during his speech where he said that you just got drafted by the perfect city and the perfect situation for you. I know the collective bargaining agreement actually gives agents 3% max on earned income, right? That dude earned every bit of the 3% because he could not have nailed it more clearly.
Yeah.
Jason Kelce came to work. He was a small dude. He talked at length about say I can't do something and I'm gonna show you how it's done, right? And it was proud. It just was amazing. It was amazing to hear it.
What's fascinating about him recalling his career is that I forgot about the year of his struggles. Like it was a really down year where he thought he was going to get traded. Yeah. And maybe as a fan, like it was maybe one of Andy's last years where it was just like they could not get out of their own way. And so, to think that he was so close to potentially being sent away, and then Stoutland comes and just sort of like reclaims him, it's like, no, I can use you. You do have the tools. You do have the ability, and I'm going to show you how to get it done. And he said from that point on, he made the Pro Bowl the next 5 of 6 years.
Yeah.
And so I was personally encouraged by that because we all go through certain situations where we sort of sometimes we hit walls in life, right? And it sometimes it takes someone to just take a look and just give you a little bit of encouragement to let you know like what tools you actually do have and that you can get the job done. And I think that's why I appreciated that story from Jason, because up until that point, he wasn't a Pro Bowler. It was like in our minds, in his 13-year career, he was always the man. But in reality, he wasn't. He was just a guy until he became one of the guys, right? And it's about the idea that it wasn't one of those lines that went like this. It was, it had the peaks, it had the valleys,
right.
But he embraced it all. And I think coming from a city like Philadelphia helped him to embrace the hard work required to get it done. And so, I just personally commend him. I wish my children were a little bit older so that they could have had a bit of a different sort of relationship with him as a player, With that said, they will learn about Jason Kelce through me, similar to your kids never seen Brian Dawkins. They'll know who he is. They'll know who Jason Kelce is. Just a job well done, man. A class act. And so I'm glad that the world, and it's funny because I saw him I saw ABC News like had a clip of his retirement. I mean, he's become such a huge name in our society now because of the podcast. I think New Heights is one of the top podcasts in the world. And so you're just looking at a situation where this guy is bigger than football, but he just bleeds Philadelphia, and you just gotta love to see that. Oh, we got some comments here. So Jason Kelce is what's that word? Hold on, I'm sorry.
Mensch.
He is a mensch. He is my favorite football player, and I don't watch football. He always comes across as genuine, kind, and caring, and pure Philly through and through. Thank you, Samantha, for that. I agree with that sentiment. I hope he has a great future in whatever he decides to do. Hashtag love Jason Kelce. Hashtag bleed green. Hashtag fly Eagles.
Fly.
I love it. And again, that's a sentiment from someone who doesn't even watch football, right? And so to your point, Jason Kelce had that kind of effect on people where you don't have to be a football fan to love Jason Kelce.
Right.
You know, I think that's what made him so unique and awesome to be part of the city of brotherly love. You know what I mean? Like he's a Philadelphian, whether he knew he was or not.
I think that's the he's Philadelphia, whether because you really can't define, like, you can't, there's no qualitative like word around what is to be a Philadelphian. I think part of it is the idea that, you know, there's no one likes us and we don't care. Malcolm Jenkins had the we all we got, we all we need, right? Like, I think all that is indicative and represented in his performance and his personality. The fact that he loves his brother and his family the way that he does. The fact that, you know, we are a city that will beat you up like family and then fight you if you talk about our family. Like, that's who we are. That's who he's been. And I just am so proud. I'm a little concerned because losing a guy like that, particularly when the Eagles are under transition or about to go through a real transition. There's rumor about Fletcher Cox, obviously, maybe the next in the retirement. And I doubt his speech is going to look like that. I'm sorry. Did you say something? I'm sorry.
There was conversation about Fletcher retiring.
There's rumors about Fletcher Cox likely retiring. So there's going to be a significant gap in the leadership. Not even talking about the performance, because he retired as a player who was still at the top of his craft. We're talking about the fact that the Eagles are about to go through a real transition in terms of leadership when they need it, and then also performance where now you need a bounce back here. So it's about to be a huge hole. And I'm not sure that, you know, while we can certainly reminisce and be nostalgic and lionize and all the big words about who he was and who he is, you know, when they put the pads on come training camp, we're going to miss him. Not because of his speeches, but because of his performance.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly. I think you also mentioned this before about your concern in losing leadership with such a young coach who seems at times a little immature, if we're just being straight up, right? Like, I'm not saying that he's not an X and O guy. I'm not saying he doesn't know football, but there are times where his conduct appears immature. And so having those kinds of wily bets on the team, I thought was very important to Nick Sirianni in terms of the buy-in, right? It's like, if you get these guys to buy in, then everyone else will buy in. And I think he benefited from that kind of relationship over the last 3 seasons. This is going to be Nick Sirianni's hardest year coaching. This year he will earn his money, no doubt about it.
And he's going to lose a guy who has been outspoken about him, who has advocated for him, and now you got that gap in terms of leadership and whatever the performance is, because regardless of whatever you thought about Jason Kelce, Cam Jurgens will not be a like-for-like replacement yet. Hopefully one day he will be, but you're losing a guy who's a Hall of Famer. Fair. And now we've got to go into, you know, a very tumultuous, uncertain season with a lot of transition, hopeful that Sirianni and Fangio and Kellen Moore and whoever the new parts are going to be enough. Yeah. They're going to be enough. And losing his leadership is a big part of that guide.
It is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the Eagles will forever be different. You know, like today marks sort of like an end of an era. There's no two ways around that. Today,
so speaking of era, Sam, who would be, I'm curious, right? So we talked about Dawkins. You know, your kids know who Dawkins. My kids know who Dawkins is. Kelce. One of my favorite things to do as a fan is, if I see this jersey, it's still cool to wear. Right? If I see X player's jersey, it's still cool to wear. Like, it's probably not cool to wear a Bobby Taylor jersey. No disrespect to Bobby Taylor, but he wasn't like that forever type of Eagle. Jason Kelce is immediately in my mind, and I'm just going like my lifetime. I'm not going like Bill Bergey and all those guys. He is probably Chuck Bednarik, forget all that. Like, in my lifetime, let's basically say Randall on. Who are we talking about as, if you see this jersey, it's always cool to rock?
I think Randall's jersey is always cool to rock. I personally, honestly think that. Now, here's an interesting one. Obviously, Randall and Doc are the first two that come to mind, where you'll never go wrong in those jerseys. Randall, the Kelly green, Doc, the midnight green. Now, here's where I personally am like, I think the Reggie White jersey is just another classic, right? Because even though he left, and even with the Brian Dawkins, like, there are a couple players who left who you knew wanted to stay and be an Eagle for life, right? And so it's like you wish it happened well for them, but you don't fault the player because you know that their desire was to remain an Eagle, right? But the money has to make sense.
Yeah.
And with, I think Reggie, there were other situations with Reggie, but I know the money was a big part of it. And so kudos to him for making the best decision for him and his family, similar to Brian Dawkins. Again, it's so crazy that it happened because it's just like, how could you not bring him back? You know what I mean? Like, but
right.
You know, whatever, sour grapes. Jason Kelce, obviously, there's gonna be a lot of McNabb fans because to date, I don't think
He's the question.
Listen, to date, I don't think arguably he is the best quarterback in franchise history. So
let me put a little bit more context around that. Let me put a little bit more context around it because he has probably ushered in. Jalen Hurts is early, right? But McNabb had ushered in the longest sustained period of Eagles success in recent modern Eagles era, right? Obviously I know I was there for every single loss to Arizona and Carolina and to the Patriots and to Tampa and to the Rams. I get all that. But is he a dude where if you see a McNabb jersey, like that's cool? You're with that?
I don't think people are going to hate. Like if you're in Philly, it's like, okay, like you're not going to hate on somebody wearing a McNabb jersey. You're just going to understand that this is a McNabb fan. Like it's one of those things you got to respect. As a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you have to respect a McNabb jersey.
All right, but let's do it. Let's do it this way because I feel like you're dancing around me a little bit. So cool or not cool? Like cool or not? Just cool or not cool? Reggie White, cool or not cool?
Reggie White is cool.
Jerome Brown, cool or not cool?
That's the other person. So Reggie White and Jerome, 99, because I see 99s all the time.
No doubt. It's dope, yeah, right?
Reggie White, 99. Those guys are like legends.
Cool or not cool?
Cool.
Randall, cool or not cool?
Cool.
All right, now let's get to the next era, right?
Eric Allen, I might do.
Eric Allen, I can rock with. I feel like Seth Joyner.
Yeah.
Seth Joyner's another cat who's gotten put on recently, right? So
I agree. Because he was a hard hitter. He was cool. Like I loved his high top fade. Like he had the dark fade. Like those boys, like they brought it. You know what I'm saying? The defense was real. And I think Seth Joyner and Eric Allen, I think, are wearable jerseys.
Westbrook.
Of course.
Cool?
Oh, of course.
All right, then McNabb then.
I don't think you can say someone wearing a McNabb jersey isn't cool. I know my answer is not as straightforward because it's tricky with him.
Yeah.
Out of respect, I don't think you can. More than likely, because here's the reality. More than likely, someone wearing a McNabb jersey is over 40 years old. So you're gonna call old head not cool. You know what I mean? Like that don't
Absolutely.
You think so?
Regularly. Absolutely.
It's hard for me to do that. If I see old head wearing a jersey from a player from his era.
No, this is a civil rights podcast. Like I don't discriminate. I'm hitting everybody with shots. Absolutely, yo.
I think I'm gonna have to go with it's okay, man. I got it.
And full disclosure. Not cool.
And he almost got to the Super Bowl, and I'm not like, cool. I wish I would see somebody with a Wentz jersey on.
Not cool. Now, and listen, let me go back to McNabb for a second because I had a McNabb jersey. McNabb used to play ball at a facility over in, like, I think it was in Voorhees, Jersey, where the Flyers used to train. And so he would go over there and just like get runs with whoever was on the court. And so I was not nearly as good as you in basketball, but I definitely was on the wrong end of a beatdown from him.
Yo, man, he got that football strength.
But you realize, like, he also was on the team in Syracuse too. He was like, so he could play a little bit. But the other side of it is though, like, I
said Shady. I'll give him Shady's jersey can be worn.
Shady's jersey can be worn too. See, like, so the only one we've hesitated on, Vic can be worn.
Vic can absolutely be worn. D-Jack can be worn.
I got a D Jackson 75.
He talked about Ertz, right? Brent Seliggy is even a guy who's like around the city now. He's big into real estate in the area. Like he's the guy you see all the time. I see Selig jerseys. The McNabb.
Real quick, I went to that bar. I was at that bar.
He referenced.
Yeah, and he's right.
You have to settle up your tab, or were you able to?
Nobody paid for drinks in that place. I wasn't like in there balling crazy. But like if you were a fan and you were part of a group, nobody paid. I was in there like once or twice. So and I have a friend of mine, a cousin who used to play for them way back in the day. So he was part of that same group. But long story short, the only guy we've mentioned so far, despite his highest level of success, has been McNabb. We hesitate, has been McNabb. And I bring this all up to distinguish him because I think Kelce, his passion and the way he connected here, even though he may or may not have had similar successes, McNabb may not have had the same on-field success, but it's the personality fit. And the fact that Kelce got it is why he will forever be cool.
But see, he got it. He got it because it's him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like he was trying to figure out the code of Philadelphia. Like his agent said, this is the best city for you.
Yeah.
It's the perfect town for
Yeah.
you. Jason Kelce is Jason Kelce. He didn't see I think part of the issue with McNabb is that people felt he was trying to present something that was palpable for us. Like
Now,
you're trying to offer something that we could digest, but it's like, is that really you? And I think
and let me say, because I don't want to turn this into like a beat at McNabb, because McNabb was really
listen, hopefully that statement wasn't that. I think it was a person who was in a tough market who was trying. Listen, he held on to the fact that he got booed in the draft during the
not
draft.
only get booed, but But if you remember that nonsense with like Rush Limbaugh and like being the black quarterback and all that other nonsense, like McNabb was outstanding as a person for a long time here. I know he had some troubles after he left the Eagles, and he was an outstanding player while he was here. But for whatever reason, Kelce, I think, is immediately on my Rushmore. He is forever cool as a jersey because he got it in a way. Performance aside, even though his performance was exemplary, he got it. He was able to articulate it. He did it in front of the art museum steps in following the Super Bowl. And then he did it today. And, despite the fact that, I might have got a little misty, my man really did a nice job.
Listen, I'm driving my kids, and it's just like you can hear a pin drop in the car. I'm looking in the rear view mirror. They're glued because I was watching it in the car with them, and like they're glued to it because I don't think they've ever seen a man just like crying like that. So I think they were just like, what's going on? And I'm sitting there watching it, thinking to myself, like, I cannot tear up. But like I'm feeling his passion. I understand. I know what it's like to walk away from a game you love. And obviously I didn't do a 13-year career, but I understand when your body is just like no mas. You know what I'm saying? Or your heart says it. So I understand how that goes. But I guess I'll just end this segment, if you're comfortable ending this segment, by just saying, Jason Kelce, job well done from the Processing Podcast. Your boys, Sam and Malik, just want to let you know that your career was exemplary. As an ambassador of our city and our team, we salute you. I love your wife. Like she wouldn't even wear a Kansas City jersey at the Super Bowl. She's like, I cannot wear another team. I just got to go with she ended up wearing like a Cincinnati Bearcats. It was red. Right. But it's like, that's the kind of stuff you're talking about who gets it. Like she got it. She's like, I can't put on another.
I think she's from Jersey. So I think she's in our backyard a little bit. So yeah. It
doesn't even matter because there are a lot of wives that are in backyards, but they do what they got to do. Like she's just like, I'm not wearing a Chiefs jersey. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it.
No,
she's right there in the box and she's not doing it. And it's like, I respect that, So speaking of respect, I gotta say, man, I'm respecting a player from your Philadelphia 76ers who
tell a friend
to tell a friend. I'm a sharpshooter. I gotta start here, man. I was at the game in Boston last Tuesday. I think that was singularly the worst performance I've seen from Tobias Harris. Right. And I was 5 rows off the court. Malik, every time the Sixers made a run, he was not on the floor. But because of who he is as a player, he has to get back in the game. And unfortunately,
let me say, because we talked a little bit about this. I think the part is because Tobias is a 6'9" dude, right?
Yep.
He's a big guy. He is a capable scorer or skilled player. Let me put it that way, right? And so he has the ability to create unique circumstances where you can't leave him, and he can guard one of your better offensive players. And so he's going to be on the floor. So you can't have him be like a Ricky Council who may emerge one day, but he can't shoot it, right? Or Kelly Oubre, who's constantly making bad decisions and he's not as consistent a shooter or ability to put the ball on the floor and distribute from there. Like he's going to be on the floor. So the fact that he is as frustrating as he is sometimes is absolutely mind-boggling because the dude has incredible talent. And you see the highs and lows of it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Brother, I watched the game up close. When I say like he just processed the information way too slowly. There was one scenario where defensively the ball is moving. Boston is moving the ball around the perimeter. I think it was maybe like a pick and roll situation where 2 people were running to the ball. Tobias was the second person moving towards the ball. But it's like if you're watching the game, you see the ball is about to connect to the corner. There's already a player on the ball. Just start going to the corner. And it's like, I see it as a fan. I see it and I know what the decision is. Yeah. And it's like he hesitates, the ball moves, and then he moves. And it's like, but Tobias, where else was the ball going to go? So again, I saw something up close that was really frustrating. When he got the ball offensively, he wasn't making quick decisions. He had a couple dribble drives where like he dribble drives, holds it, and then passed the ball to like Buddy Hield with like a second less on the shot clock. And it's like, yo, that was your shot to miss at that point. And I just felt like he just seemed so unsure of what he was doing on the floor. So that was the Tuesday game against Boston. A terrible loss at the end because we were in that game into the fourth quarter, 2-point game in the fourth, and all of a sudden it just like it went haywire.
Yeah, which always seems to happen against Boston, by the way.
Yeah, Boston's sick right now. However, Kyle Lowry to the rescue. The last two games, they inserted Kyle Lowry into the starting lineup. He had a 31-point outing against Charlotte, and I think he had 28 yesterday against Dallas. Kyle is making.
Wait, you're not saying Kyle had the.
Absolutely.
No. Wait, I'm sorry. Maybe you froze for a quick second. You're saying that the 31 and 28 were
it's from Tobias.
Kyle Lowry contributed to that. Yes.
He facilitated that.
Yes.
Kyle is making a concerted effort to get Tobias easy shots. And it's funny because in one of our earlier episodes, you talked about a quarterback giving him easy throws to kind of get him in the groove. And you were like, hey, maybe you should just run a couple early sets for Tobias. And I'm like, you don't run no sets for Tobias. But Kyle's like, look, I got to run some sets for this guy. I got to get him going early. Now, granted, in the Dallas game, he only had 2 points in the first quarter.
Right.
So it kind of lends to my point where it's like, I don't think you have to go that route. But whenever it is you are calling his name to do something, put him in a position where he's comfortable. And at least Kyle knows how to do that. And so I'm very interested to see what this team looks like moving forward with, even though it's an old Kyle Lowry, one, it helps Tyrese Maxey because Tyrese Maxey is so focused on scoring that if you take the playmaking out of his responsibility, I don't think it hurts the team, right? Mm-hmm. Because like when you get the ball, you just go. But when he was like the main ball handler, I just thought that he was not seeing the floor very well because he was just trying to figure out how to get his shot.
Because he was tasked.
When you have Kyle on the ball, now Tyrese knows that when I get it, it's just go time. I don't have to think about setting everybody up. So the offense moved well. Kelly obviously did some things last game against Dallas, but I think that Nick Nurse realized, to your point, in Philadelphia, a lot of the conversation was about putting Tobias on the bench.
Right.
Should they bench him? Is that the change that Nick needs to make? And Nick is like, I cannot bench this guy. He offers me a skill set I don't have on my roster.
Right.
If I don't play him, who can I trust? So let me put this veteran point guard in to just loosen up the game for him. And now we're seeing the benefits of that.
This is the first time, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Sixers in let's say the Joel Embiid healthy era, right?
Okay.
And even though I know he's not healthy right now, but I'm talking about since he's been here and been playing, not the first 2 years where he was on the bench getting rehab. Where we've got 5 guys who are offensive threats on the floor at a time. And let me go further, who are not immediate, I'm going to hunt you on the mismatch, right? Because you've had guys like Bellinelli, or you might have had guys like Redick, or you might have had guys like Ben Simmons or whatever it is. Ilyasova, right? Guys like that who you were going to target, right? We had TJ McConnell one year when Ben Simmons was struggling. Like, if you fast forward, because we all know the money time is going to be in the playoffs, right? So now we're looking at it and thinking, if you got 5 in the court, it'll be interesting to see what other teams do when you probably run out a closing 5 with Lowry, Maxey, Hield, Harris, and hopefully Embiid.
We are going to be a problem.
We're going to be a problem, but can we rebound, right? Can we defend with length, right? Like, I think it's going to be interesting to see it because we've got 5 guys who, if Lowry is going to be able to manipulate Harris and get him in the spots where he can be successful, then he's going to be on the floor. But what do you lose defensively? Because you could put a Batum who is going to challenge with length on a Brown, on a Tatum, on a Butler, right? Where Lowry isn't the same guy he was when he was with Houston, when he was with Toronto, and so on. So we're going to see what that looks like. But I like having him as an option on the floor because he shoots the 3 and he puts guys in places that allows Maxey to unbalance guys that he's coming 90 miles an hour downhill.
When he shoots the 3. When he shoots the 3 with volume, it is good Tobias Harris. when he chooses to take 2 or 3 3-point attempts on the game, it is a bad Tobias Harris game. It's really simple. Like you just look at the box score and tell if he played well or not, just by looking at his 3-point field goal attempts. I need to see him actively looking to take those quick 3-pointers when the ball finds him. When he pump fakes out of it, puts the ball on the floor, you're just like,
But you know what? But this is the unique piece about him. And I know I sound like I'm his agent. Shout out to Tobias Harris's dad, right, who's getting it done. But keeping the money in the family. But this is the thing about him. His ability to put you on the post in kind of like the mid block, right? Or to face up and get to the basket with either hand and shoot that mid-range, right? It's his decision making. It's not his skill set. That's always been the question.
He has to be Chris Bosh. He has to make that transition to being Chris Bosh, a guy who, when he's in the corner, knows I'm here to space the floor. But if they call my number, I know I'm capable of going to work.
Yeah.
Chris Bosh was absolutely featured in that offense.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same way when he was the number one option, but he definitely got his number called to get when like Joe, the guys were on the bench. I mean, Chris Bosh was a huge part of the championship run, and I just think Tobias Harris has the opportunity to be that kind of player. You can shoot your threes, you can get your mid-range game on, and you can post up when you have the mismatch and go over either hand.
Yeah, I hope we see Embiid come back. I know that there were reports. I don't know if you saw the reports that Embiid is actually already starting to work out.
Mm-hmm.
He's starting to do some activity. Hopefully that portends him being back sooner than later.
My next game that I'm seeing live is against the Clippers last week of March 27th. I hope that he gets rolled out in the last week of March. I would love for Embiid to say, I want to play against James when he comes to town. Right? Like maybe he gets a game in before that game. But I think that's the last week of March because in April, it's like you're gearing for the playoffs. He has to get run before the play-in.
Yeah.
We're probably going to be in the play-in, right? Like it was a great win on Saturday or Sunday. Great win. We're probably going to be in the play-in, right? And so Joel Embiid, it behooves the Sixers to have him as close to form as possible before that starts because it's a one and done if we're in the play-in. If we're lower than the 7th seed or 8th seed, right?
Who are we? Let me look at the standings quickly. Give me 1 second.
I think we're in a 6 hole right now.
I think we're 5 right now, but let's say we drop. So we're 5 right now. We are a half game ahead of the Magic, right? And the Heat are a game back of us. So let's assume the Heat jump up to us. So now you're looking at the Heat. Let's say the Heat jump up and they're playing the Knicks because the Knicks are 4 right now. So you got the Knicks and Heat in the 4-5. Fair?
Okay. All right. I'm looking at it now too. Okay.
So because I don't think the Cavs, who played well, they are 5 games up right now on the Heat, and they're like there's the Celtics are 8 games up on the Bucks, 9 games on the Cavs, and then you've got another gap between the Knicks to 12.5, and then it kind of is a clump from there. I can't see the Heat jumping up and catching the Cavs, but I can see them getting into the 4-5 spot, which means it's Knicks Heat first round, right? And then it's Heat likely. I'm going to say they beat the Knicks.
Maybe Jalen is hurt.
Well, maybe, right. So but let's assume
and Obi down. They have Julius Randle down. Now with Jalen Brunson going down, like I don't see the Knicks holding that pole position at the 4th spot with 3 of their top players not available.
All right. Well, presumably though, the Heat will be in the 4-5. Let's assume that
moving up.
Yes. And so if they get into the 4-5, they're going to likely beat any of the teams below them. I'm going to exclude the Sixers for a moment because I think the Sixers drop down. So they'll probably beat the Magic. They'll probably beat the Knicks if they jump the Knicks. They'll probably beat the Pacers. And then you got a Heat Celtics round 2. Right? Which sets up because now the Sixers, who are likely going to be in the play-in game, they're probably going to, let's say if they get the 7 seed or something of that sort, right?
We would have to. If we get the 8, it's a wrap.
If we get the 8, it's a wrap. They've got to stay out of the 8. If they get the 7, however,
I'm good.
And then they play the Bucks round 1.
I want to be. So the last time when Bucks just came to town, they whooped up on us.
Mm-hmm.
Doc and his boys came in and just like.
I think there was a motivated Bucks team. That was the best they were going to play.
But they play. It was against us, and so it's hard to not take away the fact that they came ready to play us. Period. And for whatever reason, Now, we couldn't hit the side of a bar in that game. So that does make me feel a little bit better. Like we were just ice cold. We couldn't hit shots, even though I don't think that every shot was so toughly contested that they shouldn't.
It wasn't. No, it was not. It was not.
Right? So it's like our offense was working for us, but we just couldn't get the ball to go down. Adding a Joel Embiid obviously just changes everything. Man, God, I miss him. My goodness. Like the way he used to score the basketball, it was just so simple.
Right.
For him to come back. And I just hope that he is 85% of himself. It's so unfortunate that we never get a 100% Joel Embiid in the playoffs. Like it's like at some point,
depending on where he's at, we may have our best chance of getting him at 100%. I mean, listen, every single year we go into him in the postseason, and he's coming off of a flu or a knee or a cracked skull or something like that.
He's coming off knee surgery,
right? But I'm saying by the time we get to end of March, he won't be in game shape, but he may be the healthiest. But he may be the healthiest he is.
He's never 100% together. It's either his health or his conditioning. Like it's something. We can't just get a LeBron James just ready to just wreak havoc in the playoffs. Like that's not the version of Joel Embiid that we get. With that said, to your point, hopefully with this rest to his body, hopefully he has figured out a way to stay in shape enough without the wear and tear, where his conditioning isn't like it's going to be impacted. Playing basketball is nothing. There's nothing that replaces actually playing the sport. But if he can be healthy and give us 35 minutes a game in the playoffs, I'm good with that because he is just such a monster. Even at 35 minutes a game, I am very comfortable with rolling out against anybody. But to your point, Tobias Harris is going to always be the key to our success.
Tell a friend. He is back. Kyle Lowry is like, I got my guy. He hit him with such a couple hot corner passes where you just knew that Kyle understands. He understood the assignment. Kyle understood what his role was. Like, look, Maxi's going to be fine. Buddy's going to be fine. I need to help this guy. This is the guy I got to help out because if I can get him going, then it's going to unlock everybody else. Isn't it nice to have a point guard?
Golly, this organization is going. Listen, it was the Ben Simmons issue. With Ben Simmons on the team, they refused to bring anybody in that could actually compete for that spot. They wouldn't do it. TJ
and in fairness, they probably couldn't. They probably couldn't.
In fairness, what fairness?
No. In fair, like listen,
I have multiple bar handlers.
Listen, I would have loved to have seen and absolutely advocated. I mean, I know we weren't doing this at the time, but like he would bring the ball across the halfway mark and disappear for 12 seconds into the possession. Like you wouldn't see him again at all. He was never able to restart the offense once they started to stagnate, and he was not at all a threat unless he was going to be on a lob or on the fast break. That was it.
He had a steam.
That's it. That's
so why is it in all fairness that they didn't pick up another guard?
No. When I say all fairness, I mean I think the Sixers probably saw in a unique circumstance that they were trying to deal with a unique personality. Not trying to justify what they did. I'm not trying to justify what they did because absolutely it cost us time and it cost us probably success. But
justification.
Yeah.
That's how it sounds in my headphones.
Yo, I didn't pay the homie Yo, we're never gonna see that dude again. That dude is making like $150 million. I didn't give him that contract. I'm saying. I bet you if you fast forward then and look back, you're like, what was the better agreement? Was it Ben Simmons or was it Tobias Harris who got the better contract for the Sixers? Who got the better return for the Sixers?
It's crazy because the reality is the return that we got from Ben Simmons right now is Buddy Hield. You could have made that move 2 years ago. The craziest thing is that I think Tyrese Haliburton was really the move that the Sixers would have made if Daryl Morey wasn't the GM. If Daryl Morey wasn't tied to James Harden and Ben Simmons had the meltdown that he had, there was a lot of conversation that Sacramento was interested in a deal for Haliburton. If you had Tyrese on this team together with Joel Embiid, game over.
Yeah.
Because he's on his contract is not significant. I mean, game over.
Yeah.
You had those two guards playing with Joel Embiid because Daryl Morey understands he needs guys who can pass, dribble, and shoot. So he would have still been able to fill out the roster.
Speaking of Daryl Morey, I know this is not what we planned to talk about, but talk about Daryl Morey understands. He has been catching strays from everybody. Have you seen the amount? I don't know what's in the water for 2024.
Chris Paul thing?
The Chris Paul? No, was it Chris Paul?
Yeah.
He absolutely came at him. And then all the stuff with Harden, like it is one person after another who is like, yo, Daryl Morey is a liar. And I've got the receipts to demonstrate why.
It's so strange to me. It's so strange that these grown men who have contracts that know that they can be traded whenever are like sour and bitter that a GM wasn't upfront with them about the moves that they were trying to make. It's just strange to me. Knowing the business, or at least seeing the business the way I've understood it over the last 30 years of my life, to see guys upset about being traded.
But why?
$200
But why
million
have the
contract.
conversation though? But
Say
why?
what?
But why say to them, no, you're not going to be traded. You're in our plans.
Because I don't think it behooves him to let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. He has to negotiate.
Sam, you could just as easily say, because I don't stand. I get what you're saying. I think it is almost silly, and you are completely naive to think that you aren't going to be possibly circulated in rumors, that you aren't going to be subject to a trade. But yo, the idea that he couldn't just as easily say, listen, I don't expect to, but condition the statement. He could have just as easily been like, look, I got to do what's best for the Sixers. I don't plan to, but if something comes up, you're not a liar then. You're not a liar, Morey, if you do that.
That's fine. How is him being a liar hurt him?
Well, I don't know if it's hurt him because we don't know what we don't know, right? So, like, I don't know. Maybe a player wanted to come here, but they heard Daryl Morey or heard about Daryl Morey's reputation. I have no idea. But I am sure that
if GMs are deterring players from joining franchises, like, I guess so. Maybe PJ Tucker doesn't want to come back to Philadelphia, but I heard he does want to come back, right? Like, that's the weird thing. He wants to come back. I get what you're saying. I think that listen, if your issue was about trusting the GM to make a final decision in this business, as cutthroat as the NBA is, it just seems weird to me. Like, the business isn't run that way. Like, there is no love loss unless you have a no trade clause. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And maybe for Daryl Morey, there was no conversation about Chris Paul until there was. So from his perspective, it's like, we're not trading you, and then all of a sudden the phone rings and it's a deal I can't refuse.
Just be smarter. That's all I'm at. Like, Daryl Morey is obviously an intelligent, bright man, right? I don't like lying to my
Chris
kids.
Paul contract.
What I'm saying is I don't like lying to my kids. So I'll say to them, I don't know what's happening, Thomas. I don't know what Santa Claus might do this year, Aaron. Like, I say things all the time.
So here's where I gotta push back. Don't ask if I'm being traded. Don't ask the question. The business is the business. Unless you have a no trade clause, why are we having a conversation about what I'm planning to do to build this team? You're not part of this conversation. So it's like you're now forcing me again. You can't let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. You're forcing me to include you in a discussion that is above your pay grade, literally, right? Like, I don't need to converse with you to move you. Like, now, granted, there are agent relationships, and that is a real thing, right? Like, you screw over an agent and his clients, he's like, I'm not going to send any of my clients your way.
Right.
It's a real thing. I get it. However, money talks. And so you might say, I'm not sending my clients your way. But if your clients are like, look, they have the bag for me, why can't I sign there? I'm going to fire you, because now it's like.
But all of these dudes are like, listen, nobody's been sending a paycheck because they're not going to the Sixers. Like, there is a bag somewhere else. So I can hear you. I can hear that point. Maybe if it's a Pat Bev or the market's not really hitting for him. But when we were talking about Chris Paul was going to have multiple suitors. And so the idea at the time, Chris Paul wasn't missing no paychecks at the time. Maybe now.
Paychecks. I don't think he had multiple suitors because he's not missing paychecks. I think that's the part. His production didn't match his salary.
I'm saying when the trade with the Rockets took place initially, or whatever it was. I mean, he has had multiple teams, and he has never been having a shop at the discount bargain. Like, he is always getting paid, right? So my point is that if you want to dismiss somebody like a Pat Beverly, okay, cool. But Daryl Morey, we've seen and heard, he has like a painting of James Harden in his atrium, right? Like, Harden was close with his daughter. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say in one breath, all right, well, cool, I'm going to keep the arm's length relationship when we ask about your future, but I want to be super personal every other day of the week.
Is Daryl Morey the final decision maker for the Sixers?
Probably.
I don't believe so. I think ownership did not allow Daryl Morey to provide James Harden with that extension. Point blank period.
Well,
I think Daryl Morey, he would have extended James Harden. He couldn't, so he didn't. That's what I believe happened. And it hurt James Harden that he didn't stand up for his guy, but I don't think he had the authority to pull the trigger on that move. I don't think ownership was willing. James Harden wet the bed. They weren't going to extend him based off of that performance.
I think the performance is what probably disqualified him.
I agree.
I would hazard a guess that if the Sixers were to sneak by, and I know we're way afield right now, right? The Sixers were to have snuck by the Celtics and Harden didn't completely disappear,
He would have been extended.
he would have been extended, but you would have had a leg.
Conference finals in 20 years. If he got us there,
that's my point. You would have had the leg to make the argument. Morey probably wanted to make the argument, and he would have probably been justified in making the argument because Harden was still a 20-10 dude.
Listen, I think James Harden screwed himself. After game one, I felt like he just coasted for the rest of the series. He's like, I did my work to earn my contract. I won game one all by myself in round two against the vaunted Celtics. I'm good. I've shown this team that I can still be that guy. And I feel like he just took the gas off the pedal, and like it looked like that for the whole rest of the playoffs. And then by game seven, he was just in neutral. Like he wasn't even in drive.
There's no question about it. There's no question.
I think that unfortunately for him, he made his own bed and was upset that Daryl Morey wouldn't make the bed for him. It's like, bro, we all left the house. You were supposed to make your bed. They saw you didn't make the bed.
Even still, but I think more after now. See, we all got friends. We all got friends and family members who like, yo, I really want to support you, but I can't rock with you on this one. I really want to let you be the job. I want to be the job referral here, but yo, that's my name too, right? And Morey probably would have been the job referral. He'd have been like, yo, I'm gonna go to Josh Harris. I'm gonna make the recommendation that you go get that full extension. But you disappeared in game 6 and 7. I can't let you take me down. Like, I still gotta work.
He would have listen, Daryl Morey. The city would not have responded well to a James Harden $300 million max extension. Like, come on now, like that would not have worked. And so James faulting Daryl Morey when it's like, bro, you had an opportunity to secure the bag.
But my point is though, he probably did say it at some point. You'll get the extension. Then he saw game 6 and 7. He was like, nah, dog, I can't rock with you on that. And then you got Harden.
With him, though. I feel like Daryl would have still rocked with him after game 6 and 7.
No, I'm going to give Daryl more credit than that. I mean, we don't know. We don't know.
He has a painting of him. Daryl Morey is only known as Daryl Morey because of James Harden. As brilliant as we think Daryl Morey is, without James Harden, there is no Daryl Morey. There is no Daryl Morey without James Harden. He singularly put that GM on the map. There's never been a GM who was tied to one player's success like Daryl Morey.
That may be true.
In my opinion, I think he would have been willing to just ride it all the way out. Like, look, it's me and you, bro. And I think that's why James was as hurt as he was. And he communicated in a way that we've never seen before.
I don't doubt any of that. But my point is, though, that you got enough mounting evidence between Harden, between Beverly, between Chris Paul. It's like, bro, can you stop taking these L's? That's all. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And whether or not he intended or wanted to, whatever, that's not even my point. My point is like
Patrick Beverly.
Patrick Beverly there was a whole story on his podcast and after he was traded, whatever. There's a number of guys who are consistently saying this dude is a liar.
Ridiculous. Patrick Beverly.
Who's talking
about? What are you talking about? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For Patrick Beverly to take issue with being traded is weird to me. You're like the 10th player on the team. I'm not. It's just part of the business.
Sam,
having conversations with GM about where you're going to be, to me, that's out of your lane.
I think the way we're looking at this is different, right? You are upset with the idea that Patrick Beverly had the audacity, like, dog, know your stature. Don't ask me that question.
I'm upset that he had the expectation that a general manager is supposed to like tell him what's going to happen next.
And I rock with it. I get what you're saying. My position is, yo, Daryl Morey, you are the executive vice president of basketball operations or whatever your big title is. You are therefore responsible for the words that come out of your mouth. Use a better sentence, dog. That's all I'm saying. Know how to articulate it in a way that says, I'm going to condition this because I don't need somebody then coming back and saying the Sixers are got to employ a bunch of liars. That's all my point is.
Who cares? Here's I think where the beautiful thing is. What I think happens next is players stop talking to Daryl Morey about what's going to happen next.
Maybe.
He doesn't have to say anything, right? That way you just come to work and you just go to work.
I don't think. I think that's too ideal. This is not the '80s, dog. Like that's not gonna happen.
What you
That's
mean?
not. It's not the. It's not. Come on, Sam. This is not 1985. Like, come
What are
on,
you
Sam.
talking about? It's not 1985.
Sam,
You're not
everybody.
telling me you can't get Patrick Beverly?
Patrick Beverly has a podcast. Like, why would Patrick Beverly have a podcast that's successful? Because this is not 1985, Sam. Like, Sam,
I'm still missing your point.
my point is that everybody has a self-inflated or aggrandized view of themselves.
And that is fine, but the business is the business. Let these dudes bitch and complain about what went wrong while they're super 100 millionaires. Like at the end of the day,
cool.
I'm sorry.
The fact that you are a super 100 millionaire gives you that sense of entitlement to ask these questions. The
Right.
fact that the NBA caters to these guys and have created roles for
I'm
specialists.
glad that this GM is not cowtailing to them because it's like it's so because think about it. This was the whole issue with why they had the new collective bargaining agreement to break up super teams.
Yeah,
because they let the players dictate and choose what was happening. You had guys signing extensions in a year 2, forcing trades.
Yeah,
like they were gaming the system. Daryl Morey, maybe he's one of the guys on the other side now. It's like I'm not gonna let y'all game the system. I don't care. I'm gonna go by the rules, by the book. I know what's in my what my responsibility is. I know what I am legally able to do. I'm going to focus on putting the team in the best interest to win. Maybe this whole falling out with the superstar that is James Harden is the best thing for Daryl Morey, right? Like at this point,
we don't disagree on that. We don't disagree on any of that. We disagree on who you are placing responsibility. And we have gotten so far from tell a friend that I'm a sharpshooter. But my whole thing is tomorrow is Super Tuesday, and we are talking about a whole bunch of political activities and elections. And Morey might be the only bull who was out here telling too much truth. Yo, just say we are going to do what's best for the Sixers. A non-answer is the best answer. And so 3 months later, you don't have to then have somebody calling you a liar and address that.
I think that's going to be inevitable. Guys are going to have clickbait to do podcasts. So Daryl Morey, I don't think he has the thin skin to care what these guys are complaining about, especially if he got these guys big contracts. If he got Chris Paul the contract that he's on for the $200 million currently, I traded you, but I got you the bag, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he can still sleep at night saying, okay, I had an aging Chris Paul who wanted to sort of dictate what was happening next, and I moved on from him. I had an aging James Harden who wanted to dictate a $300 million contract, and I feel maybe he didn't have the cojones to be upfront and just like, look, this is what it is, right? Like maybe he was trying. Again, he's operating in the era of the NBA where the players were really dictating what happens next.
And that's fair. But not to belabor the point. The Sixers have a ton of cap space next year. Right. If we lose out on a dude because Daryl Morey is perceived as a liar and his reputation affects the way in which free agents see the Sixers, we're going to bring this conversation up again. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think the free agent market is that robust, to be honest with you. I think remember that we thought that's why they were making a trade now. Because it's like, who's out there for you to really grab anyway? Like most of the top guys were traded and they're probably going to re-sign with those teams.
I'm including with the free agency market. I'm including guys who are going to inevitably decide that they want to be traded and they're going to only put like 4 teams on their list. And if the Sixers are not on that list as a possible trade destination,
they're not on the list because a player has an issue with the general manager and is willing to overlook the actual roster. I don't care about that player, yo. This is Philadelphia. If you don't want to play for Philadelphia because of who the GM is, when you have Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and you think that that's a real squad that can make some noise, but you're concerned about the general manager who's going to pay you anyway, I don't want you on the team. You're focused on the wrong things. Who cares? How many people work for bosses that they don't like? It's a means to an end. Everyone, listen, you're talking about Philadelphia, man, where people are grinding every single day, working 9-10 hours a day. And your issue is that you just don't like the guy who's paying you these big bucks, but you still get an opportunity to perform, to live your dream, to do all these things. He's not hindering what you do for a living. You're just upset that he's not honest with you. I've worked for a lot of employers who won't tell me straight up what the real deal is.
No doubt. No doubt. And you didn't say a single word. You didn't say a single word wrong. And you didn't say a single word wrong. But
so I'm not acquiescing to these guys' position in they live in such a small bubble, right? And I think from a fan's perspective, at some point, it's just like, all right, I hear what you're saying, but enough.
Listen, everything you just said was right.
I was talking about the Houston days. How many years ago was that?
Sam, you're missing the point, though, dog. We're not talking about you and I's work environment. They will get on LinkedIn and replace me yesterday. They will cater to a 6'9" shooter or a 6'4" point guard or a wing defender.
They won't. And I think that's the part of the conversation that these players need to understand. Again, they came from an era where they called the shots. They didn't even call the shots in Jordan's era. Jordan's era. We know what infamously happened with that team and how that team was dismantled. After winning a championship, Krause said, you know what? I need to plan for the future. And it doesn't include Phil Jackson. It doesn't include bringing these old guys back. So if that's like Michael Jordan, who was Chris Paul?
You took your laptop and your chair and sat on somebody's front lawn right now, dog. I don't know what year this is. I got
old last night. Okay?
You don't know what year this is, but you are not.
Where I'm just like, enough is enough. Like, what conversation? This guy, how many years ago was that for Chris Paul?
Dog, if you don't take your freedom marching at, like, you sat on somebody, like, you sound like the oldest man right now ever, yo.
Enough, man. Enough is enough.
Listen, I don't disagree with your view. I don't disagree with your view.
You can't.
But this is not the reality that we exist in.
But it is.
It is not.
But it is not.
Because every single player that you have talked about that has asked for a trade a year after signing a contract, they get traded to where they want to go.
I know, and they're about to put a Kobayashi on that.
They might. If they do.
That is the point.
If they do.
The league reacts and adjusts to what the players are doing. And all you saw from Daryl Morey was the beginning of adjusting to a player-led movement where the players dictate what happens next. And I could see a person like a Chris Paul saying, I'm here, right? You ain't moving me. Like, Chris Paul never comes across like the guy who's just like, what would you like to have happen, Daryl? Like, he comes across as the guy like, look, here's the situation. I'm sure he could have even been intimidating in that meeting, right? Like, I'm not going nowhere, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, he could have had that kind of bravado about him. I can see that. You're talking about these guys being entitled, calling their own shots. How do you think those conversations go? Will you please not trade me? No, these guys are like, look, they know what their value is. They know how much money they bring into the organization. Guys are running all those metrics for them and that analysis. So, like, they know their overall value to the league, all this stuff. Which
is more to my point. Because irrespective of whatever the CBA says, they're still going to have the level of influence that allows them to dictate the terms. That's how Dame got from Portland. That's how Dame got to Milwaukee. I know that Portland may not have wanted to trade him to Milwaukee, whatever, but he went to Milwaukee. He found himself in a good situation, and Milwaukee's probably worse off without Drew Holiday. Any other assets as part of that trade?
I think they are.
But Milwaukee acquiesced because they were terrified of Giannis, even though Giannis just signed an extension. Giannis wasn't going anywhere. So Giannis signs an extension. They still then trade for Damian Lillard because they're fearful that in a year he might be like, you know what, I want to get traded out.
Right.
This is the world we exist in. You and I have to go to work with people we don't like. The people they don't like have to respond and still swallow whatever bitter pill and make it work for them. It's a different world.
It is a different world, but I'm telling you, the CBA is going to adjust to this behavior. It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
They just had it, Sam. Ain't nobody adjusting nothing in 4 or 5 more years. And at that point in time, there'll be something else. At that point in time, we'll all be watching games with like goggles in our face and basketballs.
Let's see how many more players try to opt out early from extensions. Let's see how many more players, because I have to believe that the CBA has had hard conversations with agencies to say, yo, enough is enough. Like, you guys are not operating in good faith. Like, you're signing contracts knowing you went out. You're getting these bird right deals that offer you another $50 million on top of it for the sole purpose of being able to play for this franchise. You're taking the money and you're bailing. We're like, unless you want to ruin the league, honor your agreements. At least wait to the final year of your contract to try to do some wiggling out. But if you got 2 years left on your deal, I think agents, listen, all the NBA is going to do is just offer 2-year deals. You're just going to see shorter contracts.
Sam, you're
going to see shorter contracts.
But, bro, you need to get off your lawn, homie. Because you're about to see a world.
Malik, you're going to see shorter contracts.
Is going to get like a $50 million contract. Is Tyrese Maxey a $50 million player? Probably not, but in the NBA, he definitely will be.
Sure he is.
He will be. Oh, absolutely he will be.
Listen, I don't care what the money is, because that league makes money. Like, their salaries don't bother me. I'm one of those fans that doesn't care how much athletes make, because I know they're generating the money.
But you then can't say that we're going to strap up new rules that are going to prohibit some type of player activity where
Honor your agreement. I don't care how much they're going to pay you, but if you sign a contract, you sign a contract. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you can get $100 million a year.
I'm going to move us on.
Issue if you sign $100 million for 3 years and after 1 year you went out. I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with you getting a $300 million deal for 3 years. I have a problem with you trying to get out of your contract after year 1.
Well, I'm going to move us on because I want to talk about contracts in a different sport.
Let's do it.
Because I absolutely think that while we were going to talk about Zack Wheeler and the fact that he signed a 3-year, 100 and whatever, I think it's $42 million average value. So is that 126? But I want to talk about it from the perspective of Bryce Harper, actually, because Bryce Harper actually is doing exactly what you're talking about right now. And so I can't remember too many players who were in his position where he signed some exorbitant deal, which is probably fair market value right now, with an incredibly lengthy term. And he is only this is his 4th year into that term of an 8-year contract or something like that, with a no opt-out, no trade. So
extension.
The Phillies have literally all of the leverage here. And he is now asking for
all the leverage. He has a no trade.
He hasn't, because he has no opt-out. He has no opt-out. That's the big piece I'm saying.
But he also has a no trade.
The Phillies can't trade him unless he gets permission, but he can't opt out. During his negotiation, there was consideration about whether or not he wanted to have a player opt out. He was against the idea because he didn't want there to be speculation about where he could go earlier in his term. So the Phillies have him under contract for like 5 more years or 4 more years or whatever the actual length of it is. And he is now asking, with an NBA contract remaining, to have a renegotiated term. More years, more money.
This is different.
Oh, tell me how this is different. Go ahead.
It's different because he wants to stay with the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's different. This is not a player saying, I signed this long-term deal with this team, and now I went out. And I got the benefit or a bonus with re-signing with this one team. I got money with this one team that I could not get from any other franchise. Because I re-signed with this team, I was eligible for X amount, millions more dollars than I could have gotten elsewhere. So I get the money with this team and then force my way out. That is much different than a player who signs an 8-year deal, and after year 4 of being a one-time MVP, but the man saying, look, this is it. I want to call this place home forever. So let's just do it now. Because I'll tell you this much. He has a couple more good seasons and then wants to re-up. That number is going to be through the roof. So I'm saying the difference for me is that he's just saying, I want to be a lifer. Let's do it now. Let's just do this now where I don't move on. There is no other place that I play for the rest of my career.
So you're the owner of the Phillies, right? So you want to add, what do you want to add to his extension? You want to add years or value? Or
years.
Both?
I mean, I guess you have to have value if you're adding years.
No, do you increase the, I'm sorry, let me be more specific. Do you increase the average per year?
You would have to.
So let's say I think he's making like 25 average right now.
Okay.
And then he's got that over the next 4 to 5 years, whatever the length of the remaining contract is.
Years 6, 7, 8, 9. If you want like an extra 4 years, something like that, maybe it's at like 35 a year.
So you're tacking on money and more years.
Yeah, because the market's not going to be the same in 4 or 5 years. That baseball money is going to be so different that it's like you got to adjust for that.
So in this scenario, if he were to play out the remaining terms of his contract without an extension, and he was then to broach the idea of, hey, I want us to be a Philly, we'd love to have you back, you're not going to make $35 million on a contract at year 37, 38, 39, however old you'll be at that point in your contract.
How old is Bryce Harper?
Whatever it is, there's no late 30s player that is going to garner a 38, 38, 39, 40-year-old player, whatever it is going to pull in $30 million annually. It's just not going to happen.
I don't know.
Not today. Not yet.
Not yet. There's always going to be a first.
Not yet. Now, if you negotiated it into the length of your contract, like that, you'll make that kind of money over the entire term. But he's trying to add money and years. And he's got 4 to 5 years remaining on his current contract.
He was born October of 92, which makes him,
God, he's young. This is ridiculous.
31. He'll be 32 at the end of this year. So he's 31.
Mm-hmm.
He's 31.
So
At 35, you can't give him money at 35?
What do you give him at 35? You gonna give him prime year money?
It's not prime year money in 4 years. That's my point. Like a $35 million contract in 4 years.
You're missing my point. You're missing my point. You're saying honor your contract.
Correct.
You just gave me the whole thing, and now the caveat is it's different because he wants to stay with the team. If in 4 years, Bryce, we come to Bryce and be like, hey, look, we would love for you to be a lifelong Philly, but we say it in 2028 instead of 2024.
I think it's going to cost the Phillies more.
Huh?
I think it's going to cost the Phillies more.
There's no way at 38 years old or 36 years old.
He'd be 38. He'd be
30. I'm sorry, 30, 35, 36, excuse me.
He's going to cost the Phillies more if you negotiate a contract in 4 years from now. Are you kidding me?
What is Bryce Harper's production going to be at 35, 36 years old?
It doesn't matter. The same way Tyrese Maxey can get a $50 million contract, $50 million per year. It's not that his numbers.
He's negotiating that in his prime. At 35, 36 years old. No, I disagree with you.
No. It doesn't matter. The same way Jaylen Brown got $300 million. The money is just going to move up. It's not like guys' production is making the value of their contract comparable. It's just that the money is the money. So
I get it. Okay. No, wait, hold on. But let's go back to basketball for a second. Because James Harden's not going to get that money. James Harden's production is still really good.
James Harden is not going to get that money.
He's not going to get that money. He was a 20 and 10 dude last year.
Sport. It's different.
He was a 20 and 10 dude last year.
It is a salary cap sport, Malik. That is the fundamental difference between baseball and all the other sports. There's nothing limiting these guys from getting paid. In basketball, seriously, in basketball.
No, hold on. There are luxury taxes in baseball. And the other part is this, right? The other part is this, is that fundamentally baseball, even though there is no cap, there are only so many teams that we're even talking about that can even fathom a contract the size that we're talking about right now.
And the Phillies are one of those teams.
Phillies are one of them, right? So Yankees, Dodgers, Braves, no. Who am I talking about? Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, Phillies.
Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, Phillies.
That might be it.
Angels, maybe, because they got Trout and they got the kid.
And they got burned twice on all of that.
They got, what was Ohtani,
yeah.
With like $1 billion or like $700 million.
But he just went across. So Dodgers, Giants, they would spend the kind of money. You might see it in Texas, either with the Astros or the Rangers.
Right.
Mets, Yankees.
Yep.
Boston's been loath to do that. They just traded Mookie Betts a couple years ago. And then the Phillies. That's it. So, like, are you really going to see him get a 30-something million or whatever the market rate is at that point?
Yes. It's not going to be market rate. I don't think 35 million is going to be market rate in 4 years. That's where you and I are a little bit different on this. I think that money is going to be very different, Malik.
I get what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. Your point is
them to do it now. Do it now because the money is going to be vastly different later. It's just going to be.
Get your point. We disagree on you're saying that his production is not really the impetus here. You're saying it's the time and it's the salary and so on. That's what's going to.
Jalen Rose has this infamous comment about salaries. Let me see if I can find it really quickly because I know we're pressed for time. Jalen Rose contract quote. He has this really interesting quote about contracts and negotiations. You never get what you deserve. You only get what you have leverage to negotiate. I'm telling you now, if they wait, his leverage to negotiate $35 million is going to be easy because there's going to be a bunch of players that are making north of that, and his production will be aligned with a $35 million deal, especially in 4 years from now.
I have a hard time where I think the Phillies are in an untenable spot, and I'll be fascinated to see what they do. Where
it's an easy decision.
They're not right. You've got a guy who is a veritable superstar who is asking in the middle of his contract, right? And probably the tail end, maybe a year or two left of his prime, right? Maybe. Asking for some kind of revision. And you don't see that in baseball.
No, but here's the beautiful part about him. Right now, he's playing first base. He can start DHing at 35. You know what I'm saying?
Sam, there are not many $40 million a year DHs at 35 that are signing that contract at 35 years old. There are not many of those dudes walking around. there are not many, and I
$35 million. You're saying that in 2024, it might be 50 DH guys making $35 million in 2028.
I get your point. That's
all I'm saying. The money moves every single year, and if you can get 4 years early on an extension, how does that? It's just weird to me that like the fact that Bryce is putting it out there. Yeah, it's a little bit unnerving, right? Because it's like,
right.
Yo, bro, we just gave you the longest contract that we give out, and the most money that we give out to anybody. So it's like, be happy. We're married for life, theoretically, right? And what Bryce is saying, no, let's really be married for life. And they're like, it's interesting, but I just think if you run the numbers, as long as he's not asking for like $40 million a year in that next half of the contract, I've got to be comfortable with like another, maybe it's up to 32, 33.
And listen, I love the dude, right? And I think the same way that Jason Kelce has been a Philadelphia Eagle, I see Bryce Harper as a Philadelphia Philly. I know his history, and he's the guy, right? Like he's absolutely a dude who's like, I put on for the city, right? Agree. And he advocates, and he attracts dudes, and he recruits dudes, and he speaks passionately, and he gets it. I love all of that. But I also think about, like, I'm a Philadelphia Phillies fan first, right? And so while I want him here, I don't know that the Phillies need to do this. I don't think they will.
I don't think they will this year. I think they will next year. I think they're going to let him play the season out because he has too many years for him to like be a disgruntled player and like tail it in. Like, I don't think he would let that kind of hit happen to his own image in Philadelphia. Like, he knows we're not the town for that nonsense, right?
Well,
like,
I think that's true.
Then he gets us, and he knows.
I think that's true. I think that's true. He does get it. But I think the other part of the conversation that we haven't really gotten into is what kind of pressure will you have for Major League Baseball if the Phillies set that precedent? Because I think we'd be naive to think that you're not going to have the like Rob Manfred, who is the MLB commissioner, who's going to pick up the phone and be like, Dombrowski, what you doing, bro? Like, how you out here renegotiating contracts when they got 4 to 5 years left in the term? We've never had that in baseball. Never had that in baseball.
And my response would be, we want him for life. And it's going to be, we ran the numbers, and it makes more sense for us to do it in 2024 than to negotiate this contract and keep him in 2028.
Completely get it. Now, you're going to have the next situation where you've got another superstar in another city who's going to.
And that's great. It doesn't hurt the Phillies at all.
No, it doesn't hurt the Phillies.
Listen, I'm Philly versus everybody. I'm not working on behalf of MLB. I'm not even thinking on behalf of MLB.
No, I know.
I'm trying to get the competitive advantage to the Phillies. And if we can seal up Bryce Harper for life at a potential discount because we do it early, that's how I see it.
Honestly, discount now. Like, we don't even need to have the conversation.
That's my point. But it's like, if he wants to be here for life, then let that happen. Let him be he won't be Jason Kelce, but it's like, the idea is he wants to be a lifer. And I think there's value for him later.
I'm in a sentimental mood. I get it. But I just don't think that I think we're going to. I know what the market is going to escalate
next year. I think it's going to happen after next year. I think you're going to see an extension.
Well, we'll put it.
The conversation is not going anywhere. Like, if he comes out his mouth with his agent, and now granted, his agent is no joke, right? So his agent saying this now, to me, doesn't mean that they're going to put this to rest. But I think Bryce is going to play this out in a way where he does not sort of alienate himself from this fan base. He knows he can't run the risk of doing that. It's like, let my agent deal with that. I'm just going to be a ball player. But my desire is to get an extension, but I'm going to show up to work every day. But I'm putting it out there in the media. Philadelphia fans, I want to be here for life. This is all we're trying to do, is to be here for life. Get it done now so that I don't have to think about it while I play the rest of my career. I understand his motive. I do. Yes, it's security.
Right.
It's security. And I don't even think he's betting on himself. Quite frankly, I think it's straight up security. Because if he was betting on himself, he would wait. Because I think if he just played out, if he had 3 good seasons, who knows what that number could be in a renegotiation, right? All he has to do is really show up in a postseason. He just has to be a big bat in a postseason like he's always been, and it's worth the money.
I don't want to denigrate him, but I mean, he has suffered injury issues. He has changed his position. We will see what he does. And so the fact that you've got a first baseman now where you don't typically see the value as at first base that you might see in a corner position in the outfield, there are numbers there that are going to make a difference. I love Bryce Harper. I don't want it to happen. I don't want it to. When I say I don't want it to happen, I don't want it to be an issue. I
don't want it to be an issue. I think it would be so unfortunate if this became a negative conversation in Philadelphia over Bryce Harper wanting to be here. Like, that's the part where it's like, this can go really bad in a really bad way, where you have a superstar who wants to remain in Philadelphia, and the team is unwilling to renegotiate to extend him.
And all the vibes.
And
all
part
the
of it
vibes.
is because he has such a long contract to begin with. But it would
Yeah.
like, to your point, all of it will still be unprecedented. It's unprecedented for the first contract. It's unprecedented for the request for the extension. It'll be unprecedented in terms of how they deal with it. Like, all of this is uncharted territory. And so for the Phillies, they got to read the tea leaves well. And I think that if they have a numbers guy who says, you know what, as much as this is bad in terms of like collective bargaining for our league, in terms of our particular situation, maybe it's in our best interest to see what kind of numbers they want to lock him up at now. You know?
We'll see.
So we will see. Now, I have a unique what's processing for you guys, if you're comfortable making the transition.
Let's do it.
All right. So, like I said, I was able to attend the Boston game, right, on Tuesday. And what was really interesting about the game is that we get a car service. I was in New Hampshire with the family. Get a car service to get down to the game. We arrive at the arena. Now, I've never been to TD Garden in Boston. You arrive at the arena. What's unique about Boston is that, one, the city is not big at all. I don't know if you've been up there. It's not a big city, but it's so fascinating because it has so much power and decision makers, but it's not like a large place. But what's really interesting and unique about Boston is like how they integrate their center city with sports. It's just different, especially being a Philadelphian where it's like everything is in South Philly. It's like your sports are down there, and then you have Center City. For those who don't know what Philadelphia, how it's laid out, you have Center City, Philadelphia, which is like your downtown, and then you keep going down Broad Street to the end of Broad Street where you have your sports complexes in South Philadelphia. And your Flyers, your Eagles, your Sixers, and your Phillies, right? So being part of that environment, now you have like Philadelphia was Xfinity Live, which is like a mega sports bar and they're actually doing a revitalization. I think there's like a $2.5 billion renovation project plan that's like on about to be approved to revitalize that whole area, right? And so it's like that is the main place for sports as a Philadelphian. Going to a Boston game, we get out the car, and the first thing one of the people who I was riding with notices is the steam coming up from the street. So she asked her husband, like, "Hey, what's going on there?" Right? And she's like, "Well, there's a subway underground." And I was like, "There's a subway underground here." No. I asked, "Is there a subway?" Right? She asked, "What is that steam?" So my question was, "Well, is there a subway?" Like that's kind of how I understand steam coming up from tunnels or from those grates or whatever. And her husband was like, "Yeah. In fact, TD Bank or TD Garden is set up on like the North train station or something like that. Like it's a main train hub." In that moment, Malik, I realized like this is what the 76ers are proposing. They want to relocate the Sixers to Market East train station, right? Where the Sixers arena will sit on top of what used to be the gallery, because it's all connected to all of your major train lines. So you can get there from New Jersey, you can get to the game from New York, and you can get to the game from all of your suburban areas around Philadelphia. Unlike today. Today, if you live in the city of Philadelphia, then you can take the sub to the game, or you can take like the L, which means you're going left from right. For those who aren't from Philadelphia, the L is actually going left from right. When I say the sub, you're going north and south. And so you can take an L if you're on the left or the right of Broad Street. You can take an L to get you to Broad, and then you can take the Broad Street line down. But relocating to Market East means that if I live in Warminster, if I live in Thorndale, if I live in Westchester, if I live in Lower Merion, all of those train lines run directly there. So now as a fan, it's like, and if you live in East Oak Lane, I can take a train line. Cheltenham, like you can get it's the access. You have more access points to this location. And also it connects you to New Jersey and New York. The other reason I think it was a unique experience is because and here's where it got kind of cool. When we first walked in, guess who I run into? Quincy Harris, QDZ, right? Mm-hmm. And he's there, and I'm telling my friends who he is. I say what's up to him because he knows Andrew, right? And so it's like, hey, what's up? I'm Drew's brother, blah, blah, blah. We chop it up. But then when I'm passing him again, I mentioned to him how I'm aware that this is the kind of setup that the Sixers are trying to do. He's like, yo, I'm actually here right now to take some B-roll to talk about the possible transition and to like talk to fans about this kind of environment.
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I ended up getting interviewed, right? And I gave him my perspective on what this could feel like. And here's my singular point that I thought was unique about the possibility of this move in terms of what I'm processing about the idea of what the Sixers are envisioning. As awesome as it is to be surrounded by sports fans when I'm down South Philly, when I can, especially when it comes to like tailgating, which interestingly enough, is kind of obsolete when it comes to basketball. Like there is no real tailgating for basketball, so you don't lose the benefit of parking lots for something like this. But I will say the fundamental difference, and it's actually not a negative thing in my mind, is the idea of going to a Sixers game knowing that Philadelphia is downstairs. You see what I'm saying? And like that was the thing about Boston, because while I'm there, and it's like being at the Market East or the Gallery, and it's like you're just going to get on an elevator to take you up to the arena, right? And so I'm rubbing shoulders with like commuters, people just going to work, coming home, people who aren't interested in basketball at all. So you have a whole bunch of fans filing into this train station, and then you just have people just doing their daily business. And it was like the feel of it almost felt like being in a Reading terminal, right? So it's like if I'm surrounded by like real Philadelphia culture, and I could just take an elevator upstairs to a basketball game, like that feels different as opposed to being separated by just sports fans, right? And I think the other unique opportunity for the Sixers, if they were to make this move, I don't care how rabid we are as fans, the TD Garden gets so much louder than Wells Fargo has ever been in any years that I've been there. It's a no contest, bro. It is no contest.
Why?
Because of the sheer size of the facility. So it'll be like a Madison Square Garden, TD Garden. Those buildings are much smaller. It'll feel like the Spectrum. The Spectrum would rumble. Like when I was at TD Garden, I felt, because I went to the last game that was held in the Spectrum before they tore it down. Like they had like a throwback game. I feel like it was in the Iguodala era. Like they had one more game at the Spectrum before it was ripped down. And I went into that arena, and when I say it was raucous, I was like, man, I wish I could have been here in the 80s. Like, I wish I could have been here to feel this kind of energy, because the Wells Fargo is just too big. The sound escapes. It goes into the rafters. It's loud, but it's not terribly loud. It's not deafening. TD Garden was deafening. And so the other takeaway for me is like, man, if we create an arena that's downstairs from the whole city of Philadelphia, and it's tighter and the acoustics is better, where the sound will really bounce off the walls, where it's like those fans can get really rowdy. Come on, man, that's a real home court advantage. Like Boston is a home court advantage. I don't care what nobody says. I mean, I've never been to Madison Square Garden, but I got to believe those are probably the two loudest arenas. When they have this banner that says, make some noise, as soon as, it's almost like a contest, bro. As soon as make some noise goes up, and it only goes around the arena like 2 or 3 times, you can't hear. It's almost like you can't see because it's so loud. And I'm like, I've never experienced this back home. Never. The arena is just too large. It's too large. And so that's why I'm like, yo, there is something to this idea. Great accessibility. You get to connect with all of Philadelphia while you're attending a game. You have the accessibility from all these transit lines, and you can restructure an arena that is like better for the acoustics to create a real home court advantage for your team. So I think that's what I'm processing, man. The idea of the Sixers truly relocating.
So you are fully in on them being,
I think so,
downtown.
I think I'm fully in on the progressive idea. That's what I'm fully in on. I'm fully in on the idea that we need to plan for the future. The future will not look like it looks today. And if we can create a village type setting and community in downtown Center City where it's more walkable, where there's more pedestrian traffic. Here's the other thing that was unique. When you're getting closer to the arena, the type of businesses you see around there support like a lot more casual environments, right? And so even understanding how it'll reshape that part of the city where you have different kind of eateries, like it's not the business corridor that it is today, where it's more placated to like people wanting to spend time down there and not just work in that corridor, right? I think like that's another part of it. It's like, yo, like it feels like a party town in downtown Boston. It doesn't feel like Center City for us is work. in Philadelphia. It's like a lot. Yeah, you have your things at night, but
Bars,
daytime,
restaurants, whatever it is. Yeah.
but daytime, it's like it's business. It's a business corridor. There, it's infused with business and
Washington also has something like that too, where they have the MCI. Well, I don't know, the Verizon Center, I guess it's called now, where that's right in their convention center. And so it is immediately accessible to a lot of like kind of foot traffic and a lot of local businesses as well. And it's part of kind of the larger structure where there's shops and there's restaurants all within kind of the same area.
Right
I know what you're saying. And I've spent time in Boston. I've not been there since it's been TD. I spent time in Chicago where I've actually seen like the Wrigley all down there, as opposed to like whatever the White Sox Stadium is called now, where it's a little bit more remote and inaccessible as compared to the Cubs Stadium. So I get your point. I don't know that. I don't know that I necessarily am. I'm agnostic on it. I like the vibe of having everything together. I completely recognize, however, that what you said about we're going towards the future and the future may look different than what it is right now. I've loved having, it was the Vet and then the Link and the Spectrum and Wells Fargo or Course Ace and then Wells Fargo, whatever, all that right down there. And it's all been great.
Remember what was the FU Center?
Yeah, right. First Union. I was a member of First Union at the FU Center. I had FU money back then. That's a lot. But all that going on, I enjoyed that. But I do think at some point in time, there's probably a better model that can be approached. I think the question really becomes is how accessible or what becomes displaced when you put that something there.
I agree. And I think the other issue that the city has to figure out is because this is not the first time Josh Harris has attempted to relocate his team, right? He tried the Naval Yard. Like, they've been shot down on a lot of different potential locations to relocate the team. They better figure this out before he takes that team to Jersey. And that's the part that's like, y'all are playing with fire with this billionaire who wants to own his own venue. It's very obvious what his issue is. He does not want to be a renter. He does not want to be an leaser. He wants to live on a lease. This dude is in the business of making money. He wants to own his own facility. So if Philadelphia, if you're not willing to make room for this 76ers franchise, they're practicing in Camden right now. They have a huge center. Allen Iverson's statue is not going to be in Philadelphia. It's going to be in front of that practice facility across the bridge in Camden. If you keep playing with fire, New Jersey will welcome the Philadelphia 76ers. And like, we would have done that. It's like we did not allow this team or offer this team a space to move to. And so he moved the team out of town. I'm telling you, these guys have too much money for you to keep saying no. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's another reality of this. He has way too much money for you to keep telling him no.
That's interesting to see. I hope that there is. I have not seen the latest plans. I'll be curious to see what the production in terms of whatever advocacy they're trying to do to convince people to have it down there or garner support for it there. But I will tell you what, probably not a good look to draw analogies. I understand that there's some similarities between what they're hoping to envision and realize. But yeah, I don't care what Boston is doing. Let's be with that. Like with the whole idea, like we're Philadelphia, I get it. Like, this is what we're going for. This is the model.
But to be fair, the original conversation is that they said it'll be Madison Square Garden light, like a Madison Square Garden type. Madison Square Garden light, right? It's just so interesting that TD Bank, a little bit similar, but again, I think with Madison Square Garden, it's like one of those spaces that is like known for all types of arts and, you know what I mean? Like a venue used to house, everything. Right. And so I think that's his mind is like, yo, this is not just about sports for him. He wants to create a Madison Square Garden in Philadelphia. And that's another thing that, like, I understand that it's more than just about hosting games. He's like, this could be a place for the arts. This is where you come for plays. This is like our Broadway. Like, this will be the space and the place, and you can get there from everywhere. And there's a part about that. It's like, hey, he's trying to bring culture to an area that is struggling right now.
When you go to, I'm with you on it. And when you go to the Sixers game, how do you typically go to the Sixers game? You drive all the way down?
No, I never drive. I take the sub. I take Broad Street from North Broad. I just go all the way down.
So you park around North Broad and drive down, or take the subway down?
No. I park at home. Like, I park at from North Broad. So I get on the sub at the top and just take it all the way down.
What's the closest stop to you?
So, like the closest stop for me is like Fern Rock.
Fern Rock, yeah. So you drive to Fern Rock or that area. Yeah. That's what I've always done too.
Well, no, I'm in East Oak Lane now, so it's like it's just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's really simple because I'm literally off of Broad Street. So it's like I just drive a little bit this way, hit the train station, and then
I think that's the
when I
challenge.
was in Mount Airy, that's a little bit of a different conversation. But there's where if I were in Mount Airy, having a game at the gallery helps me because now I can get on the Chestnut Hill line and get to the game. Right now, when I was living in Mount Airy, I would have had to drive to a train station and then take the sub down. But more than likely, I would have done that because parking there, you got to pay another $25 to park.
But you know what? I think that's the challenge, and I think this is a little bit of the fact that like Texas provided me this perspective. People value their independence quite a bit. They value their independence quite a bit, and so like if you're living in a more outlying area, like you're accessible to Broad Street. But if you're living out like I don't know King of Prussia area, whatever it is, you might just want to jump on 76 rather than like go catch the train over like Stratford or something like that. Right? You may want to because now it's a 45-minute drive as opposed to driving to the train station, waiting for the rail, getting on the rail, then either if it's in Market East, great, or otherwise if the transfer on, take the sub and go down. Like it's a different situation. And you may value your independence where it's like, I don't really want to support this because the city is so small and people do come from so many different places to see and experience that environment, whether it be Xfinity Live, whether it be the Sixers or whatever the case might be, that they don't want to be beholden to someone else's schedule. So like when I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go.
But that's the beautiful part. It doesn't stop you from driving.
No. But it stops you from driving all the way at your convenience. Because I used to drive in from the suburbs down to like Fern Rock or whatever it is, and take it from there. Now I'm just going to drive all the way in, right? Because if I'm living in a place where if I'm not near Broad, which is where I was at some point in time, right? If I'm not near Broad, if I'm out in if I'm in like Phoenixville for God's sakes, right? I'm going to take the 15-minute drive in as opposed to drive to a train, waiting for the train to take the train down, and take the subway all the way from there, take the subway back, train all the way to my, and then get on from there to my car.
There's no more subway.
If you have your model, what I'm saying is people value their independence is my point. So you're just saying they take the train. You're in your vision, you're saying it's already there at Market East and you can take the train.
I'm saying that they are predicting a future where there are less drivers. Like they're looking at a city that's going to be a lot more pedestrian traffic. Like that's the whole idea, that as in
the city, I agree. Yeah, but I think folks outside of the city,
but in general, like if you look at like you remember you saw all the development was happening in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Most of those areas that you see, like a lot of this development, there's not also the parking associated with it, because the idea is that hey, they're trying to sell this model that people will be either there's accessibility to public transportation and or there are ride shares and or there are like different ways to move around without you actually having to own a vehicle. And so I know even in Mount Airy, there's some structures going up where like that's part of the pitch. It's like, yeah, it might be 100 units. It's only 30 spots because people aren't going to be driving. Like, yeah, many people aren't going to be driving. But that's the whole mind, is that like in the future, you're going to have less drivers. So now you want to be mindful of like accessibility points. And to your point, right now, you could only take the Broad Street line to the game. And I know when I go to the Sixers games or Phillies games, the train is packed. You know when it's game day. When you're going to the train from Fern Rock all the way down, it's packed. All people going to the game. So, and then the beautiful part is on the way home, it's like they sometimes, well, in my opinion, I think it would work. It is going to be a huge change for Philadelphians. There's no doubt about it. To your point, people are going to have to figure out what's in their best interest. I still think you have options of driving into the city and parking at train stations and still just taking the L, just going left to right as opposed to getting on the sub. So I still think you have some options to drive closer to the arena and still not actually drive all the way into Market East. Like I would never recommend that to anybody. Like, look, I mean, even if you wanted to go to a suburban station, you might have a better job finding parking around 16 and JFK than at 8th and Market, because if that thing goes live, there will be no parking. Like I wouldn't even think about driving down there. And that, so I mean, there's a lot of conversation. I don't want to belabor the point, but I will say that for the first time, I actually saw a glimpse of what it could be. And because Boston is unique in the fact that all of its sports are in downtown Boston, I saw it and I kind of understand it. I understand what it could be. by seeing how Boston is designed. I'm just like, this could work in Philadelphia. It's different.
But it could work.
Philadelphia is known for its one location. It's like, and it's a rabid sports place, and so separating the Sixers from everybody else will have its disadvantages. There's no doubt about it. But I think you also might be able to integrate a new audience, right? There might be a different audience that might become interested in Philadelphia basketball because of the proximity.
Ooh, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if that's a whole different conversation though. But okay.
And I think that's part of what will happen as well. Like, if I'm being honest, you're going to have also maybe more of a corporate audience.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I hate to say it out loud, but I also believe that will be the case. Like, it's not going to be all roses. Like,
it's going to be attorneys who are hosting clients who are
where the ticket prices are going to become ridiculous because it's going to be a smaller venue and it's going to be premier seating, all these kinds of things where it's not going to be easy to get a ticket for a Sixers game.
No. Well, I'm definitely not going to go into. I had a couple different thoughts this week, but I definitely won't. I think I'll save one. I feel like we have to at some point in time talk about what is going on in culture and society with everything that is happening with celebrities and either the revelations on these new truth tellers or the criticisms that are being levied on different platforms right now. That is what I was thinking about. I feel like we have to kind of save that because inevitably someone else will come for somebody else, either deservedly so, or someone will do something on a podcast or say something somewhere that's going to get everyone's attention. But just off the top of my head, we've had Cat Williams multiple times. We've had Monique. Diddy is absolutely. I feel like if I just even say his name at this point in time, I might get sued and justified. Right?
He'll go by that no more. So
nah, man. And so I feel like there's a conversation to be had there because I am exhausted and I'm really concerned about the direction of culture where everything we are doing right now is about either truth telling or getting attention or criticisms thereof.
Did you see the story? This is a woman who no one knew who was telling a 55-part story on TikTok.
That's part of where I was going to go.
10 minutes long. I said, wait a minute. Can we do the math on this real quick? Because
that's kind of where I wanted to go. Like, I wasn't going to talk about that.
Professionals, attorneys, doctors, and they're talking about the fact that they committed the time to watch this. And I said, wait a minute. You said 55 episodes and they're 10 minutes long? So you committed 9.167 hours to watching this?
Yeah.
Mindless nonsense? And the answer was indubitably. And so for me, I'm like, all right, honestly, my wife and I, we thought about like, okay, we need to adopt some part of what this person sort of uncovered in this whole storytelling phenomenon in terms of like how to grab people's attention. But to your point, it's like, it's just a person's story. And people are like this person matters.
I don't even want to, this is going to sound terrible because I know here we are talking and I use this as more like what's on my mind as a space to kind of get it off my chest. Right. But I don't want to live in a world where like doctors are canceling sick visits because we talking about some woman who was out her mind anyway, dealing with a dude who was even crazier. Like, I'm good.
And here's the worst part. I knew what they were talking about, right? Like I knew what they were talking about because my wife and I got suckered into the reaction of the video on our ride down to Baltimore for the dinner, right? So it's like, hey, we have all this time to kill in the car. Somehow we stumbled on it. And so it's like, oh, this is different. But it was a reaction to it. I had no idea that there were 55 videos that this person had put out to just talk about this situation. But to your point, it's like the sensationalism of today. Like it's feverish. Like people are just want to find something that's salacious to hold on to and talk about. And like, it's almost like sports fans. It's weird. It's like there's a new environment that has the same sort of craze reaction that sports fans have, where they're all in, where they're committing real dollars, real time to something that, in theory, how much does it matter?
It's not real. It's not real, and that's
like it's for your mentals, but it's not real. You know what I'm saying? And I think now you're looking at this sort of this other culture that is tapping into the the psyche of man that allows us to like fall victim to like webs of things that aren't real and like put real effort and attention and thought behind these real, you say real life situations, but like just people's story, like this whole Diddy scenario, bro. It's just bizarre. It's like, one, there's been rumors about Diddy forever, right? But now we're at a space where it's like things are documented, right? Like now there's like testimony that's going public, and it's creating like such a very strange environment. Like it's things have just become uncomfortable all the way around. Like I don't know, man. I'm glad you mentioned this stuff because I don't really know what to do with it. And honestly, like we're on the internet right now, right? And so it's like, what's our responsibility? Like, do we have a responsibility to stay away from it? Or are we as humans like, yo, there are some things that are interesting, but at the same time, we also realize like, let's not fall victim to this the way we seemingly are seeing the world blindly fall victim to things that don't really have value.
I agree. No, I look at this and I think that one, we have a responsibility to treat the issue from a rational as best we can perspective.
Mhm.
Right? So with Diddy in particular, there are real people hurt in real ways. And so I don't think that I can attack it as some sensational, I'm here just to either kind of like delve into whatever someone else's trauma or experience or to satisfy some kind of weird exhibitionist curiosity. Like, no. There were people who actually claim to have been sexually assaulted or worse, people who have been threatened or hurt, people who have been potentially drugged, raped, misled. All of these cases are present there. In the IG story or whatever it was, where my girl did the 55-part story, like, honestly, she taps into a part where either we are so deluded to believe that there is real value here, or we are so detached from our own sense of self that we have to find value in that. I don't want to be that person.
Right.
I don't want to be that person. But this is what 2024 seems to bring, where we started with Cat Williams, who then recently had another interview where he was going back and saying all the nonsense was like talking about fluoride and how he was running the 40s. Bro,
as we continue the conversation, just I want to make 2 points. One, SA for the first term you use, and let's say grape with a G.
Fair enough.
Because what I've learned is that YouTube will dox you for certain words said. And I know those two phrases, just from watching shows, I know like those are two words that hit their algorithm, if you will, and not a positive way. So obviously we're not talking about anything wrong, but just as as we are learning these YouTube streams, yeah, those are two words that if we come up with the abbreviation for them, where we can still get the message across, but sort of avoiding those particular words. So like SA and then Greek.
Fair enough. And my point is exactly what you're trying to make, is that there is a lack of sensitivity to the real hurt that exists underneath these issues. Yeah. And we are drawn to the sensational aspect of everything that is happening. That's the part.
I agree. Because even with the whole thing about Diddy right now, at least in Philadelphia, the conversation is more focused on, the rapper, right? When there was a lot that sort of what do you call it? The deposition, like what I don't even know what was released specifically. Like all the
he was charged. Diddy was charged. I believe he was charged.
He was charged.
I'm sorry. Someone filed a complaint against him, in which they allege certain things to have happened. So he's embroiled in a civil lawsuit,
right? And in which the testimony was released.
The deposition.
The deposition. So it's in the deposition is where he had communicated certain things specifically that it's like has the city of Philadelphia just on fire right now around like what's going on with these two guys, right? But to your point, there was much more damning information of non-consensual behavior that is not being really looked at and talked about. But they're like people, again, it's the salacious stuff that people want to focus on, where it's like, yo, there are people harmed in this thing.
Yeah.
Like that's where we really need to like focus our attention, but we're just too fickle-minded. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's like the shiny object. There we go again. We just focus on the shiny object And we're in a day and age now where not only do you focus on the shiny object, because everyone has access to the airwaves, or everyone starts talking about the same one shiny object. And it's all of a sudden you miss the whole point of what was actually part of the deposition and the other real information that actually forced him to depose himself in the first place.
Yeah.
It wasn't that
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't even it.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you, man. And so let me ask you something. I know like we're so beyond time, but how do you guard your kids from stuff like this?
I think you almost have to adhere to the PG-13 rated R and apply it in every aspect of your life.
Gotcha.
I think there has to be the rational expectation that the reasonable expectation that you are not going to be able to shield or introduce every single subject matter to every single child or loved one the way that you would prefer to. However, they don't need to have social media accessible to them right now. They definitely don't need to have unfettered access to the internet.
Right.
If we have conversations, if I hear something that's said around friends, when I'm at their school, when they're here, when I'm in the neighborhood, whatever the case might be, I'll have the conversation with you. And I'm not going to have it in a like, I'm going to tell you what to think. I want to hear what you're saying. And I want to try to either shape or guide you along that route. Because inevitably we're going to learn so much. I learned more about like sex, for example, from like dudes in high school and HBO. Like my parents didn't have those conversations with me.
Yeah, my parents had those conversations.
Yeah, so like I'd be foolish to think that they're not going to have, like, they won't be introduced to certain discussions prematurely in ways that I would not prefer. So I think it's going to be my responsibility to kind of be involved and just anticipate some of those things, and then just be very careful about what I say, how I say it, and when I say it to them.
Yeah. And I guess that's really all we can do, right? Like
that and drink, my man.
Very
and pray.
And pray.
Yeah, we'll do that. But definitely drink at some point too, though.
Because we're fathers, gotta drink. Yeah. So no, I am that's also something I think about, because as my daughter, she's young, but she's starting to pick up the iPad more frequently, and now it's like we just came to the realization that when she's on Netflix, she wasn't just in the kids section, like she was on our accounts. So it's like, well, wait a minute, what are you watching? Right. And so it's like, it's just the reality of like, this is not a baby girl anymore. Like, this is a person who is trying to understand the world. They're navigating and figuring things out on their own. And so now it's like, how do we lock up this iPad in a way where it's restrictive, where to your point, let's put the parental controls on here. So there's only certain.
And anybody who's out here saying like, well, back when I was young, we'd just be outside until the street lights came on. And then when they went off, we had to be home by that time. Dog, cats was out here getting touched in ways they should not have been touched.
A lot was happening in that unsupervised time.
They were being disappeared in ways they should not have been disappeared.
First time I saw a gun, I was hanging out with friends after school, and it was just like, yo, what is that? It's like, where'd that even come from? And it was such a weird, uncomfortable situation, but it's like no one supervised,
Exactly.
And somehow this kid brings that. And it's like, all I was thinking, like, something can go wrong so easily, and it's like, I didn't keep hanging out with that person. But at the same time, to your point, just because we were more physically active doesn't mean that like we weren't up to stuff that we shouldn't have been up to.
The only difference now is the internet, bro. That's it. Internet and cell phones.
Access to cell phones. We did, and they can connect with people all over. Like that's the real difference, is accessibility. But where there's a will, there's a way, and we definitely had a will back in the 90s and late 80s. We had a will, and we made a way for ourselves to understand what the life has to offer, what this world is all about. The concern that we have is that in light of social media and internet, they'll have a depiction of what the world is about based off of a small subculture that gets magnified on these social media platforms. So in their minds, it's like, this is what the world is, when it's like, no, that's not the world. That's the subculture that the algorithm is just throwing back at you over and over again. You can't escape it on Instagram. You can't escape it on TikTok. You can't escape it on these platforms. But if you go outside, you'll see that there are real people living real lives that don't operate like this. And I think that's the part where, for me, getting my kids outside, interacting with people, community service, like those kinds of engagements, I think will just help them find a kind of balance where they don't think that what they see as they get older is just like, this is how all people operate.
Well said.
So that's all I got today, folks. That's what I'm processing. So, again, man, I am really loving the fact that we got engaged to do this, Malik. I think it's important for us to have the time just to speak to the people, as Philadelphia sports fans, husbands and fathers, about how we see life. Especially, listen, even to combat all the nonsense that's on the other channels. So someone has to say something that's that might be thoughtful, something that's engaging, something that families can listen to, something that people can resonate and identify with, some of the things and experiences that we have as real people, as opposed to this sensationalized world where it's like you're eating popcorn because it's so foreign from anything you've ever experienced.
I don't want to belabor the point because I know we're about to wrap up, but you just said foreign and it's sensational and other platforms. There's a podcast in which a former NBA player mentioned that if you want to improve the defense, I don't know if you heard this, then just get rid of all of the foreign players.
So I saw him. I didn't watch the clip, but I'm telling you, that dude is known for saying.
So
I
heard that.
Bro.
Wait, but Sam, let me just say this. I heard that and I was like, yo, he just tried to build a wall around the NBA. And he's trying to get Mexico to pay for it. Like, I don't know how many foreign players are in the league. I know they have a more significant representation, but nobody's sending Jokic back. Nobody's sending what's my man in Dallas. Nobody's sending him. Nobody's sending Luka back, right? Nobody's sending Embiid back.
Embiid back.
Nobody's sending Embiid back or Giannis back, right? I don't know how many of these dudes are
SGA. He's Canadian.
Right.
He's not European, but he's not American.
Or Jamal Murray, right? How many of these guys are we actually going to build a wall and keep on the other side because defense in the NBA is suffering?
But see, and it's such a misguided statement because when you watch Euro ball, they do play defense. Listen, when you watch the Redeem team, talk about and how they prepared for the Olympics. Carlos Boozer, there's a clip when Carlos Boozer, who is he working with? Gosh, I can't think of the other forward. But he was essentially talking about the differences in officiating. And he's like, look, in the NBA, when you're setting the screen or if you're going through, you can't stop a guy. You can you're in the NBA, you're not allowed to stop guys in their movement, right? So it's like if a guy was trying to do a cross screen, you can't hold him up from getting to his destination to do a cross screen. You got to move with him, but you can't restrict his movement. There is none of that in EuroLeague, right? It's like in the Olympics, they will body check you. They will restrict your movement, right? Like all those weird NBA rules to help the offense don't exist abroad. Now, if there's a conversation about athleticism, maybe there's something there in terms of like just your ability to stay in front of someone. But I think when it comes to the commitment to the defensive end, yes, there are some Euro superstars that are just like offensively minded, but there are also American superstars that are offensively minded.
We can go into the merit of the conversation later on. I think I just had more issue with the notion that
it's a terrible statement. It's a terrible
sensational. It was the sensationalism, and I don't want to get into the whole point about.
But that's who he is, right? Like that's how he butters his toast. Like he is known for making the soundbite. He's always been that guy to say something that's just like, huh? But now you got to tune in and he gets the world he lives in. Listen, this dude is not slow. He's made a lot of comments over the years that like I've said, this guy's a bit of a knucklehead in my opinion. Like he just always have come across a little bit like that to me. But I can't knock the fact that he's sound enough to understand how to make money in this world. Point.
Well, hold on, but this is exactly my point. Is that someone like there are sponsors on that wall, there are sponsors on that floor, and I'm not saying that they should. Like, they choose to invest their money wherever they do, but it is driven around the culture, which is we just talked about 55 parts, and Cat Williams and all the sensationalism around that. So like you are only growing that cancer.
Listen, he's all for it. Listen,
I'm over it. So anyway, we can say that for the conversation.
Group that is like, he's part of the group that I think Cat Williams is talking about. The inside group that he's going to be pegged as a guy who can win, in my opinion. I think Gilbert Arenas is being pegged right now as a guy who's going to be able to like be the face of NBA podcasts, like all that stuff. The fact that he's on Club Shay Shay now, like he does the thing that Ocho did, where Ocho comes in on Monday nights after the football game. Now he has a segment on at nighttime, the nightcap, I think it's called, where he has like the basketball segment and he's the guy. It's all by design, man. Like it's all by design. And so I think Gilbert Arenas is doing what that entity wants of him to create the kind of reaction, responses, viewership, right? Regardless of the message, he gets views. And I think there's a group that only cares about that. It doesn't matter that it's distracting. It doesn't matter that there's nothing edifying about the content, that it's just like that comment is it's so bad. I'm glad you mentioned it because it's so wrong of a point to make. Like it's wrong on every level.
Yeah.
Because, like if you identified any ethnic group and said they're the problem for the game, like
Exactly.
It's
that's where I was going. That's why I said it is xenophobic, and we're trying to build a wall.
Agreed.
That's what he's doing. That's what that comment does.
That's the problem with the NBA. It's like, whoa, bro. How do you even get away with something like that?
Yeah.
But you know what? That was a brilliant point. The fact that is okay speaks to where we are as a culture. It just speaks to where we are as a culture. That a statement like that from a former player can say the problem with defense is that y'all let all these Euros in. What? Like it's like, what? You kidding me? Are you kidding me? Right now, I don't think the world can. I don't think the best players. I don't think the best players in the NBA can beat the best players in the world today.
Oh, wait, we'll have that. We'll table that. We'll table that.
There, folks, join us next week. I think we should tackle this next week.
We'll table that. Yeah,
we'll table it. So, folks, it might be next week. You got to stay tuned for when we're going to have that conversation. Team USA versus Team World. Who wins? And we're gonna create a roster. We're gonna go down it, look at the matchups, and as best as possible, make a prediction as to, hey, in a 7-game series, who do you got? And we'll put the names up on the board so everybody can see who we're looking at. And hopefully, we get some participation. So if we drop the name that should be on there, let us know. But I'm of the belief that a world team right now will give the
Are you including Embiid? Are you including Embiid on the world or the USA? He's a USA citizen. He's playing for the USA Olympics.
Well, I'm including Embiid with the world because the last he played, he did not represent USA.
But he is committed to USA for this coming Olympics.
We'll see.
Okay, we'll discuss it.
If I see him in an Olympic uniform, maybe we wait till then. Because if I see him in an Olympic uniform with the USA jersey, then I gotta pull him off the world team. If he's representing the USA in the Olympics, I gotta pull him off the world team.
Well, the next episode we will discuss citizenship, ethnicity, and whether you have a birthright to be able to do all the things in this country, including play defense. We'll pick that up next Monday.
Processing. What kind of citizen do you have to be to play defense in the NBA? There it is. Do you have what it takes?
Born in DC on a bald eagle holding the Constitution. It's nonsense. Stupid.
Are you naturalized or? My goodness. Well, folks, this was another great episode. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Processing. Again, check us out every Monday night, 10 o'clock sharp Eastern time. We're going to tackle what's happening in Philly sports, but then also talk about things that affect us as fathers, believers, and husbands. Again, please feel free to like and subscribe. Also, hit the notification button just in case so that you know when the next episode is dropping. So if in case Malik and I decided that we needed to roll out an episode that's sort of off schedule, you'll get notified when the episode drops so you can tune in and join us. And as always, feel free. We're going to drop the link in every episode so you can feel free to join us and just, talk shop with us. If there's a topic of mine that's of real interest to you, we would love to get your perspective as we move this thing forward. So until next week, folks, we'll see you then.
All right.
Malik?
Build the wall, Sam.
How to build the wall.
Build the wall.
Because they're not playing defense.
Golly. All right, man. I'll talk to you.
Peace.